Hello, my beautiful friends. So I wanted to do a follow-up to my previous video where I talked about the paranormal investigation that I went on, because I talked to the lead investigator and the co-owner of the company, Laurissa, and she clarified a lot of things, and I thought it was great, and I wanted to share it with you because we talked about it. Now remember that none of this stuff is what's in the article. The article is completely different. It's a completely different focus. It's the event itself. And it's a complimentary article because it was a complimentary experience. So that's a different thing. But she did clarify with me some things that I had been concerned about. And number one was the ethics issue. She said, of course, she will, try to help this thing in the basement go to the light. She will absolutely do that. She didn't know that she could do that. She's Catholic, and she didn't know that people... the Catholic Church doesn't really tell you that you can do baptisms and last rites. You should always have a priest, but, in emergency situations, anybody's better than nobody. So, she didn't know that. So, that made me feel better, that was her concern, was that she wanted to make sure that I knew that she would never hold a spirit hostage to a location just so that she would have, fodder for another event. So, I want to make sure that I say that right away. She also clarified that, she's been doing this a long time, and she's a lead investigator with her husband, Alan, who I call him Alan the Skeptic. I love them both. They're both great. And so, they have a recipe that they used, and they were the second group that I was with. And it's a really good recipe. Like, they go into the room, she'll say, like, this is what we have seen in previous investigations. And these are the tools we're going to use, and this is how these tools work, and now we're going to do whatever we're here to do. And that recipe works like a charm. Now, the first group I was with, they did all the same things, but they didn't explain it in that same recipe, so you would get the explanation throughout, and you're not always paying attention because you're looking around. And a good example of it is in the kitchen. So in the kitchen, you have Keith and Kevin. And I didn't know why there were two different names. So I'm thinking, all right, is this a script and somebody's not getting it right? Like, is this entertainment? And but, and I remember pieces of we get two names. Are you explaining why you don't know the names the correct way or what? But then Laurissa explained that they've done previous investigations where both of those names have come out, with different investigation teams on different equipment. So that's why there are two names. They don't, those two names are used, often. I don't know if it's two different spirits or whatever, but she explained it. And I remember them saying, that was the excuse they gave. But when they gave it, because of how it was delivered, it just felt like, do they not know who's in this room? Do they, they said it, but it wasn't here we are in the kitchen. There's a cook that often, that has come up in different previous experiences. And the names Keith and Kevin have both been used. And they've confirmed those two names. So that's why we're doing it. It wasn't just, but they did say that at some point, but I'm lost in my thoughts going, well, so I'm not really paying attention to, so I think maybe just tightening it up and having that recipe of, okay, here we are in this room. Here's what's happened in this room before in previous investigations. Here's the tool we're going to use. Here's how that tool works. Now we're going to use the tool and do our investigation. I think that recipe worked, and that resonated well with me when I was with that second group and Laurissa was running the group. I would say, that she said that she didn't feel shadow in the basement, and I didn't feel shadow in the basement the second time either. But I did admit to her that I did do a prayer, an exit prayer for a shadow on my way out when I was in the basement, because I'm thinking if this guy, wants to go to the light, he should go to the light. Here's the light, go to it, I'm not saying that I exorcise this ghost. I'm not saying that at all. But I think maybe the spirits may get tired of the people. It's a lot of energy in a short amount of space for them too, where a million people are asking the same kinds of questions they're always asked, and that's got to be exhausting as a spirit. So, and you're in their space, which they probably don't want you in their space. You know, I would approach it differently, because even like, I play a lot of funerals as a piper. I play a ton of funerals, and I do not walk into any cemetery without first saying a prayer and thanking, you know, the spirits, and thanking, you know, and thanking the spirit, and also saying a prayer for all those who are deceased. And I would approach it, even though some of the ghosts are cranky and you know them really well over time because you've done this, you know, you've done investigations at this location 1.5 million times. I would still approach each and every one as thanking them upon arrival. You know, thank you. It's Beth. I'm here. We're bringing a group in because, you know, we're trying to show them that there is, you know, life beyond this physical realm, and I appreciate your time and anything you'd be willing to share, you know, with the people who are here. I think there's a lot of familiarity with the spirits that are there, and relationships maybe have built between the investigators and the spirits. I would just approach it differently, but that's just a stylistic thing. That's not a judgment. It's just who I am, you know, as a spiritualist. Like, that's how I always approach spirit, always with gratitude, and being respectful of the space in which they occupy, which I don't understand, and hopefully won't understand for a long, long time. Knock wood, right? So I thought that Larissa's explanations were really, really good about. I think one of the problems that happened in my group, we had a quieter group than they had, right? So our folks were a little quieter. But when we were in the basement, the one girl had energy around her, and I felt that energy around her. I would have suspected. So that person's name was Marlena, and she said, somebody came with somebody. And I was like, it's probably me, because I protected myself with salt before I went in, and I do carry energy with me all the time. I call the energy into me, the positive light. Like, I protect myself with white light, always, you know, always. So I would have expected it. So that she was next to me, and I think when Marlena called her out, she was uncomfortable, and because I think she was quiet. I think she was maybe more of an introvert, and so, like, then she was called out, and, like, you could see that she was uncomfortable. And I know, as mediums and as spiritualists, we always want to, like, confirm, like I'm seeing something, I want to confirm with you. But there's sometimes when, like, I just will, like, say, hey, did you have, like, a really close relationship with your mom? Is your mom in the spirit world? And, you know, and the person kind of, like, has that, like, oh shit, deer in the headlights look. Then you kind of know, like, I was just wondering, you know, and move to the next thing. And she kind of kept at it a little bit, because I think she was genuinely trying to help the girl and say, like, your grandma's here and she's protecting you, and that's great. But the girl seemed a little uncomfortable, and then I think we got uncomfortable because we're watching her be uncomfortable. So it just started things off uncomfortable. And sometimes you just have to have a sense of your audience to know to, like, shift the energy. And so then you've got Ducky, the chatty dude, who's just talking away, blah, 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 blah. And that was a little exhausting, because I think, and I said this to Larissa, I think he comes from a great place. He really, really wants, he loves what he does. It's so clear that he loves what he does. And he really has a relationship with the spirits in there. And like, a good example of this is in the bar. Like, the spirit in the bar is John, the bartender. He doesn't like people behind his bar, especially men. So, you know, Ducky was like, well, I'm going to come back there, and I'm going to, like, why do you got to taunt the ghost? like, don't be taunting spirits, you know, you know, but then he was very chatty. And so it felt very theatrical, and Larissa was very concerned about that. Like, it's not meant to be that way. And I don't think that he would say that he was trying to be that way. I think that's just, like, I think maturity, he's a younger guy. I think you learn over time when to be quiet, and when to let other people be the ones that experience it. So, like, what Larissa's group did when we got to the bar is she had one of the participant men go behind the bar, and that bothered the bartender, and things lit up. And, you know, it wasn't her going back. It's like when the participant is experiencing it and something is happening, it is all that more authentic because there's nothing that participant is doing to light up the lights. They're not touching it. There's not a guy there's not a guy behind a wall somewhere pressing buttons to make things go. And they can see that firsthand. But if it's you, like you going behind, and you're always going behind the bar. Now, I will say in the bar, they did have somebody put this headset on that could listen to the spirit radio. And it was one of the participants, and they were saying what they heard. And that was great. Like, that was fantastic because, like, it was in line with what we were talking about and what was going on in the room. And like, I was so glad they did that, because that really was impactful, I think, for that guy. Like, I think he was like, wow, holy shit, this is real. So that seemed legit and real, because there'd be no way to produce that in any other way. So, so I really did appreciate that she followed up, and that she really was concerned that I was concerned about the ethics, because I'm always concerned about ethics, like how we treat people in this world and then how we treat them in other worlds and other existences. I do care about that. And I do really think that she really does care that people see the kind of work that paranormal groups do as legitimate, which I think it is legitimate, right? Like, this isn't the first thing I've been on. I had been to a church in Lansford, which is a community around here, covering for the news. I had been to a haunted tunnel covering for the news. And as a reporter, you get to have a very unique experience, because you didn't buy the experience. You're there as an observer, reporting what you see, feel, and hear. And so you're looking at the event itself, but you're also using your journalistic questioning. Like, all right, why is that happening? What is, like, so at the Lansford event, which is this church, like, we couldn't go in the church because it was dilapidated and it was, out of code, so people couldn't go in it. So we all had to, like, peer around the door. So I'm thinking, if I'm a spirit, like 400 people are looking at my door, like, I'm not going to be all that eager to, like, why are they all looking at me? So, but they had divining rods there, and that was such an interesting, again, the tools were interesting. It was a different group doing it entirely. So they had a different approach, which was very, very interesting. And I think there's a challenge there for the paranormal groups, because not only are you're educating people about the paranormal, you're educating the people about the tools that are used and the approach that you use, and then you're educating them about how to sift through the evidence. And that can so quickly devolve for a skeptic who doesn't come in believing that any of this is true in the first place. It can devolve. So a really good team will focus on the evidence and the evidence collection and sort of those reasonable, logical things. And I feel like this group will do that in a different space. I think this particular event and space makes it difficult to unravel the thread between what's the entertainment of Waldorf, the haunted attraction, and the structure, which has been there since the 1840s or 60s or something. I think it's just a challenge with this particular site. But I would absolutely welcome. I'm going to try to go to their next event, which is at a mine. Because there's got to be lots of things happen in mines. And I think that would be super interesting, just to watch their process and how they do things when there's not, I don't know if there's an audience for that one. Maybe there is. It would be interesting to just go with them on an actual, like, investigation where they're investigating something for the first time, just to see how they do it. Because the other thing I thought was that I had asked the one girl who was operating some of the equipment, like, is this how it always is? And what I meant by the question was, like, does Ducky talk nonstop all the time? And, like, nobody, like, nothing happens? And she had said yes, but what she was saying yes to was, like, we always have two teams, we always have this equipment, everybody gets the same thing. Like, that's what she was responding to, but that wasn't the question I was asking. And my question wasn't clear, because what I really wanted to know is, like, because the teams were so different, and I think there was some frustration. I think Marlena, the medium, was also frustrated with all of the chattiness, because I know this for myself, like I can sometimes not get good readings off of situations when somebody's just talking nonstop. But I think it's just excitement. I don't think it's because they're trying to derail. I don't think Dickie was trying to derail anything or, be a distraction, but I think they're not self-aware of how their chattiness can negatively impact an event. Like it's not, you think you're helping, but really what you're doing is you're making it look like Disney, and we don't want that. We want people to have an authentic experience, and I think Laurissa was very concerned that people walked away thinking it was Disney when it's really not. Like, it really isn't scripted. It really is. Yes, they have a lot of experience in that house, but there's more investigations to do. Because spirits can move around. They're not tied to those rooms. I asked about that. I didn't know. I don't know. I don't know enough about this. I work in the spirit realm of spirit, of our golden light. I don't really work with, departed spirits that are caught between the worlds. That's not sort of the work I do. Although I do believe that they're there, right? I believe there are entities caught. So it's more for me to learn, right? It's more to do, more to learn, more to research, and I appreciate so much her honesty and her integrity. I really felt like it was important to her that I know that, that she operates with ethics, and I believe that is true. I believe she is full of integrity, and that their company is full of integrity. So I just wanted to follow up with that, and when I finally get the article out, when I finally publish this, it takes a little while because it goes through some editors first, and I had to do a ton of research because I had to verify everything that she had said about the property, and I had to get the data and the dates and the people and the names and all the things. She had to get all that right, so that the article itself is unbiased and fair, and it's a complimentary article because I think it's a genius business model. Honest to God, like, that's what they're doing there is great, and and the proof is that people are coming from out of state. None of the people in this group, one person was originally from the area, but now lives in Indiana. They drove from wherever they were and came to our community to do this activity, and that's fantastic. That's an amazing, model for business. So, kudos on the business side, right? So, and that's what the article is about, the event itself. So, I am wishing you all the best in light and love. I will, I will read runes tomorrow morning. I have an early morning meeting, but hopefully I'll get up early and I can read runes for us because we haven't read some for a while, and we need an energy pull. So, wishing you all the best in light and love. Be well. Take care. Bye-bye.